It is off-season time, but that can be fun too. End of season, locker room cleanout day, as well as a preview of the Stanley Cup Playoffs.
You're Locked On Sabres, your daily podcast on the Buffalo Sabres. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Sabres your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Sneaky Joe DiBiase here today, and it is the first off-season edition of the Locked On Sabres podcast, and I love the off-season, and we'll have lots to talk about throughout the coming months, including, of course, trades and player evaluations. We'll do our own exit interviews for each of the Sabre players from last season. Free agency at some point, and the draft at some point, the lottery, and the Stanley Cup playoffs, despite the fact the Sabres are not in the playoffs. Of course, we are a hockey show, and we will cover it all here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. So thanks for making us your first listen every day, especially here in the offseason. And we are presented by HelloFresh. Skip trips to the grocery store and count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. That's why it's America's #1 meal kit. Go to HelloFresh.com/NHL60 and use the code NHL60 for 60% off plus free shipping. So, things that we'll get to today. I will preview of my picks for both the East playoffs and the West playoffs for the Stanley Cup playoffs. And of course, we will get to all that happened in the last couple of days with the end of season locker room clean out days for the Sabres, what I took away, what I heard. And this is before, of course, we will hear from Don Granato and Kevin Adams on Wednesday morning. So I think we'll hear some interesting things. Of course, Adams will be the one that I am interested in hearing from the most. We don't hear from him as much as Granato, and different player decisions that will come this offseason. There's not a ton to really figure out for the Sabres. I mean, we all think they're going to add a defenseman, and it will be interesting what they do in goal. But there's not really a lot to do. It's just kind of let the kids cook. You know, I'll be interested to hear from Adams whether he thinks Yuri Kulich and Matthew Savoy are primed and ready to join the NHL next year, what he might answer to a question like that. But the thing I am most looking for to pick up signs of what Adams is thinking is on Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. To me, that is the player with the biggest decision to make for next season, because there's no place that makes sense for him if you don't want to give up on him. So will Adams sound like someone that wants Luukkonen to be with Levi next season? Will he sound like someone that might be willing to trade Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen? I don't think he'll be willing to waive him and to try to get him to Rochester. It doesn't seem likely, but we'll see if we can pick up any clues from Kevin Adams about Luukkonen coming up on Wednesday. So that's ahead on Wednesday. And one other thing we'll have to tackle in the coming days and weeks is what Sabres are doing at the World Championships. There's a lot of Sabres going to the World Championships. Alex Tuch is going for Team USA to play with his brother Luke Tuch, who is 6 years apart from Alex, and they've never played together in the same team. JJ Peterka is going to play for Team Germany. Canada is going to have both Jack Quinn and Devin Levi, and that's only so far. I know Jeff Skinner said he's considering, Owen Power is considering, but Levi is going, and that will be big because he only got 6 games. Was it 6 games or 7? 7 games for the Sabres. And getting some action at the Worlds against more NHL level competition we'll have to continue to evaluate this guy. How ready is he to be not only an NHL goalie, but to be the #1? So Levi will be worth watching. Yoki Harju, I believe, is going for Finland, and we might get a couple of others. So the World's coming up. They're splitting it between Finland and Latvia. I believe that's the first week of May that gets going. We'll have to keep an eye out for how some Sabres are doing there, especially Devin Levi. So things I took away from locker room cleanouts. You got to start with the captain. Kyle Okposo says he does not know whether or not he will be back next year. And that might be something that is up to the team. And how their roster shakes out, how interested Adams is in bringing Okposo back. All his teammates love him. They call him Dad. I mean, every single guy I listen to from Locker Room Cleanout talked up Okposo and the impact he has made on them off the ice and on the ice. Not all of the young guys, too, like Alex Tuch, Jeff Skinner, talking about Okposo's impact as well. He's coming off a year where, it wasn't great statistically, but he was okay. 11 goals, 28 points. He made a decent impact at 5-on-5 puck possession. I don't know how much he's got left in the tank. He looked really slow at the end of the season. So I think he could go either way. His impact off the ice is so big that, all right, he showed you enough to think, all right, he could try again next year. But you might get to a point during the year where you think he really shouldn't be in the lineup, and then you have a tough decision on your hands. Or if they want to go as skilled and as talented as possible, they might say, hey, this is it. So do you want to retire? Or do you want to go to another team? And I think Okposo sounded like someone that might just retire. So I'm up in the air. I'm on the fence, 50-50 as to whether or not Okposo will be back. And I think you can make a good argument either way, whether or not he should. Other things I heard. Alex Tuch. Alex Tuch's a great listen. If you're going to listen to one guy at Locker Room Cleanout, Tuch is the one to do it. Talking about the youth of the team. There was a common theme from the veterans. Tuch, Okposo, Skinner. All were it was a better tone with this end of season, as you would expect, than past seasons. And the tone I was getting from all those veteran guys is, hey, this team's going to get good. And it's because of all these kids. It's because of Quinn taking steps. It's because Peterka. There is an expectation from the veterans to the young players that they're going to improve in the offseason. They're going to get bigger. They're going to get stronger. They're going to be more mature. And they're going to come in next year ready to make the playoffs. And I think that's a fair expectation. So that was a very common theme that I picked up on throughout all of their interviews. Other things we picked up on the Locker Room Cleanout, Tage Thompson and Matthias Samuelsson were dealing with a bunch of injuries. Thompson with a back injury and a shoulder injury and a rib injury, and Samuelsson was playing with a sprained MCL, and was it a broken finger on top of that? Like, Samuelsson was playing through a bunch. So those two guys, key players on this team, were really banged up towards the end of the year. Luukkonen talked about wanting to compete with Levi for the starter's job next year. You've heard my take on Luukkonen. I don't think he should get that opportunity. I think he had that opportunity for 50 games, and he wasn't able to take hold of it. But we'll see how, again, Adams answers a question about Luukkonen on Wednesday, assuming he will get one. All right. That was about the highlights, though, of Locker Room Cleanout Day. Again, the overall tone, the overall attitude is this team is on the right track, and the young players make some steps, and they should be a playoff team next year. Oh, one other thing I'll mention. Peyton Krebs, he had an interesting year. I think everybody kind of liked his season, right? Like, he became a two-way player, a defensive specialist, and that's not something I would have thought for Krebs. I would have thought if he was making an impact, it would strictly be offensive. But he made an impact defensively, playing on a line with Kyle Okposo and Zemgus Girgensons, and he was an energy guy. He got into some fights, which I know his teammates loved. So Krebs really took on a different role than I thought he would. And he talked about how he and Don Granato watched film of Patrice Bergeron, and they trying to pick up on different tendencies and things that Bergeron does that Krebs can incorporate into his game. And man, if that's the type of player Granato is sitting him down to watch, and that's the player they envision him becoming, of course, not a Selke winner maybe on that level like Bergeron is, but that style of player, he did a good job in year one of that role, trying to start to figure that kind of stuff out. But he did say he wanted to contribute more offensively. So the 9 goals and 7 assists he picked up this year, I think even he would tell you he'd like to be double-digit goals and maybe 40 to 50 points. All right, we'll take a timeout here. When we come back, my Eastern Conference playoff predictions. The playoffs begin on Monday night, and then we'll get to the West a little bit later on. That's ahead here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. We are brought to you by Athletic Greens. Right there. Check out the website, athleticgreens.com/NHL Network. I start my morning every day with AG1, whether or not it's a shake. The shakes are really good, or you just take a little drop, the little dropper, and you put a drop of all the vitamins and minerals into your water or your coffee, and you don't even notice that it's there. Tons of people take some kind of multivitamin, and it's important to choose one with high-quality ingredients that your body will actually absorb. AG1 is a small micro habit with big benefits. It's one thing you can do every single day to take great care of yourself. Your subscription comes with a year's supply of vitamin D, which is so important to add in these winter and spring months when we don't get as much sunlight. Athletic Greens was created when the founder experienced a ton of gut health issues and ended up on a complicated supplement routine to recover, and it cost him $100 per day. It costs you less than $3 per day for AG1. You're investing in your health. It's cheaper than your cold brew habit. Over 7,000 five-star reviews, recommended by professional athletes and trusted by leading health experts. Right now, it's time to reclaim your health, arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. It's just one scoop and a cup of water every day. That's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. And to make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs for on the go with your first purchase. All you got to do, visit athleticgreens.com/NHL Network. Again, that is athleticgreens.com/NHL Network. Take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. Welcome back to the Locked On Sabres podcast with Joe DiBiase, and thanks for making us your first listen, especially here in the off season. We'll get to now my playoff predictions for the Stanley Cup Playoffs, which get going on Monday night. And I am going to start in the Eastern Conference, work my way through. We'll get to the West, go all the way to the Cup. Get an interesting Cup pick for you. One that Sabre fans might not love, but there are ones that you could hate a little bit more. All right, anyways, starting at the top on the NHL bracket website, I have got the Boston Bruins taking care of business, beating the Florida Panthers in 6 games. I think this is going to be a series. Florida is a tough matchup for the Bruins. They are very talented. They are very, physical. Matthew Tkachuk leading that group. Tkachuk and Marchand, by the way. That's going to be a sight to behold throughout this series. I think Florida, the reigning last year's President's Trophy champion, is able to skate with this Bruins team. My biggest concern for Florida, why I don't have them pushing it to 7, is I don't trust what they have in goal. Whether it's Sergei Bobrovsky or Alex Lyon, I don't even know who's going to start game 1. I don't think we know yet. 7:30 on Monday night. Boston's got the goalie advantage. In fact, they have 2 goalies that I would trust more, and both Linus Ullmark and Jeremy Swayman. And they're coming off the best regular season in hockey history. That's got to count for something. I've got the Bruins beating the Florida Panthers in 6. Next series. For the first time in 20 years, I've got the Toronto Maple Leafs winning a playoff series. It would be utterly hilarious if the Maple Leafs are not able to win it. And I'm rooting for them not to, but I'm picking them to beat the Leafs, the Lightning. Tampa has been dragging themselves to the playoffs. Now, on one hand, you could say those games didn't really count for all that much. They knew they've been playing Toronto since November. But they had their guys in those games, and they were playing terribly. So I don't think Tampa is going to push this series all that far. I think the only thing they really have going for them, honestly, is Andrei Vasilevskiy. They have a big advantage in goal. Toronto's going with Ilya Samsonov, it appears, but he's been banged up. So they have questions in goal. But in terms of the rest of the rosters, far and away, Toronto has been playing like the better team for the last 3 months. So I've got the Leafs finally getting over the hump and beating the Lightning. I think they're ready to do it, and I have them winning in 5. I think they're going to make quick work of the Lightning, especially with them having home ice. To the Metro side of things, first round, I have the Carolina Hurricanes just blitzkrieging the New York Islanders in 5 games. The Hurricanes, kind of similar to Tampa, not playing their best hockey, but in the playoffs, when the power plays dry up a little bit, you need to be an elite 5-on-5 team. And this year, an expected goals for by a significant margin, the number 1 team in the NHL 5-on-5 was the Carolina Hurricanes. And I know they're not playing great as of the last little bit, and they miss Andrei Svechnikov. But I think Carolina, top to bottom, far superior team. The Islanders are they're lucky to be here. They shouldn't be here. They're going to be the worst watch of the playoffs. I got Carolina over the Islanders in 5 games. And then, one of the most interesting series of the first round, the Devils and the Rangers. I've got New Jersey winning this series in 7. I've got Lindy and the Devils getting through the New York Rangers. The Rangers with Igor Shesterkin have the advantage in goal, but I think the Devils, the way they play that up and down the ice style, young and fast, playoff experience, definitely that box is checked by the Rangers. I'm going with the youth here. I'm going with the energy. I'm going with the offense. I'm going with the New Jersey Devils to win it in 7. A very tight series between themselves and the New York Rangers. To the next round, round number 2. In the Atlantic, I had Toronto winning and Boston winning. So Boston and Toronto. And I will say that would be the best second round matchup you could have. I mean, it is the playoff series I bet hockey fans in general want to see the most. Toronto against this historic Bruins team. And I am actually going to pick the Leafs. I am going to pick the Leafs to beat the Bruins. It's just hockey's weird that way. I don't want to make it all about that. But hockey is weird. We're the best team in regular season history. They don't even make the conference finals. Yeah, that's completely within the range of outcomes. I think Toronto, the way they're playing and the way they're able to skate with anybody, their blue line is finally not completely figured out, but a lot better than it's been. And honestly, their goalie situation, it's never been this good. And that might sound weird because they haven't invested a lot in it, but they're getting the production. Now, will that happen in the playoffs? I'm going out on a limb by saying that they're going to get the same goalie production in the playoffs. But Samsonov has been good for them this year. And if Matt Murray ever comes back, Matt Murray has been good for the Leafs. I just think they're so motivated. There's so much pressure on them. And I know there has been pressure on them in the past. But I really got a feeling this is Toronto's year. I'm not rooting for it, but I have a feeling this is their year. I've got them going to the conference finals. In the Metro, I've got Carolina beating the New Jersey Devils. Carolina, a more complete team. I've got the veteran experience on top of them still being young enough, and they're just the most complete roster to me in hockey. I trust everything from the forward group to the top end scorers to the depth scorers, the secondary guys to the blue line itself, Brett Pesce, Jacob Slavin, the goalie situation. I just think they are rock solid from top to bottom. And a great 5-on-5 team. I've got Carolina going to the conference finals and getting out of the Metro, which means in the conference finals, I have the Hurricanes and the Maple Leafs. And I have Carolina getting through for all the reasons I just had them beating the Devils. I think they will beat the Toronto Maple Leafs in a very tight series if the two reach the conference finals, which I have here. I like Toronto, and I think they'll win a series or two this year. I don't have them going all the way to the Cup. What will that mean for their offseason? Still could be fun, but I got Carolina going to the Stanley Cup final. All right, when we come back, I'll give you my West picks and then my Stanley Cup pick ahead of the opening night in the playoffs, which gets rolling at 7 o'clock on Monday with Hurricanes and Islanders. That's ahead here on the Locked On Sabres podcast, and we are presented by eBay Motors. For a championship team, it's all about making sure every player is a perfect fit. It's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right, so the next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can be sure every part you need fits right the first time around. Just add your ride to My Garage and look for the green check to know the part will fit or your money back. Because you like sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop on eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it is easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. Final segment here on the Locked On Sabres podcast with Joe DiBiase, and it is Stanley Cup playoff time, which means it is time for my Stanley Cup picks. We ran through the Eastern Conference in the last segment. I have Carolina making it all the way to the finals, topping Toronto in the conference finals. So let's go to the West. First round in the West, I've got the Colorado Avalanche making quick work of the Seattle Kraken by winning in 5 games. For me, this simply comes down to elite level talent. The Avalanche have a lot of it. Nathan McKinnon is the second best center in hockey. Cale Makar is the best defenseman in hockey. And Mikko Rantanen, with 55 goals this year, is one of the best goal scorers in hockey. I think the Avalanche, far and away, blow out the Kraken with top-end talent. The Kraken are a nice lineup. I mean, roster-wise, they're deep. They've got some good talent all around, but they have nobody that is on an elite level. Not one guy. Who's their best player? Vince Dunn, I like the roster. They're deep and they've got everything filled in. But Vince Dunn, that can't be your best player and win in the playoffs. I'm sorry. So I've got the Avalanche beating the Kraken in 5. It is fun that the Kraken are here. You get some fresh blood. But we just did this with Vegas a couple years ago. Does anyone really need to see? You just showed up. You can't win right away. And I don't think that will happen. I don't think we're going to see a Vegas level run from the Seattle Kraken in this one. You can always get a hot goalie, but to be honest, Colorado, man, Alex Georgiev, he's been even better for them this year than Darcy Kemper was for them last year when they won the Cup. So if anything, Colorado could be even more dangerous than they were last year. They're not going to have Gabriel Landeskog for the playoffs, so that hurts, but I like Colorado to win in 5. I got some quick series here in the West. I got Dallas beating the Minnesota Wild in 4. I have a sweep for the Wild, or for the Stars. I don't think Minnesota's all that good. I just really don't. I don't think Minnesota, they were of the playoff teams that made it. I believe they had the worst expected goals for at 5-on-5, like 18th or 19th. The Stars, meanwhile, man, if you have not watched a lot of Dallas Stars hockey, let me get ready for hockey to introduce you to Jason Robertson. This guy's not just a star. He is a superstar. 109 points this year, 46 goals. He is an unbelievable talent, an elite level player. And listen, I make fun of Dallas once in a while for how old they are. And, a lot of guys go there to retire. But Jamie Benn, 78 points. Joe Pavelski, 77 points. Ryan Suter still playing 20 minutes a night. Like, their old guys are still contributors, even though they're old. And then in net, I mean, they have an elite level goalie. Jake Ottinger is that. He's a top 5 goalie in hockey, in my opinion. So they've got the goaltending. They've got the elite number 1 forward up front. They've got the defense core, of course. I think Heiskanen. Yeah, I thought Heiskanen was hurt for some reason, but he's not. So they've got Miro Heiskanen, who had 73 points, an elite defenseman. They got everything. Dallas is a very complete team. I like them to go through Minnesota in 4. Vegas and Winnipeg. Very interesting series. I did not expect this, but a lot of these analytics hockey sites, Evolving Wild, Dom from The Athletic, and others, they all have Winnipeg as a very marginal favorite, like 51%. Like, not much of a favorite at all, but a favorite. An 8th place team in the conference over the number 1 seed. Okay, I'm in. I'm going to trust the Smarties on this one, and I've got Winnipeg winning over Jack Eichel and the Golden Knights in 7 games. And I'm trying to stay as unbiased here as possible because I will be rooting against Vegas because of Jack Eichel, of course. But I think there's real merit to picking Winnipeg. And most of it does come down to the goaltending factor. Connor Hellebuyck, if he's not the best goalie in hockey, he's 2nd or 3rd. And Vegas is going with Laurent Brossoit, Hellebuyck's backup from a couple of years ago. Good luck with that. He's been good at the end of the season. But, man, that's your plan going into goal in the playoffs? I don't see it. I don't see Brossoit getting them through. I think Hellebuyck is going to steal a series here. They've got good talent in Winnipeg. Josh Morrissey, a breakout season on the blue line. Of course, Kyle Connor and a great goal scorer, and Scheifele, 40 goals, and, Nikolai Ehlers. It's kind of the same cast and crew in Winnipeg, but as long as they have Connor Hellebuyck, he gives them a chance to beat anybody. And as long as Laurent Brossoit is Vegas' goaltender, I think they could fall apart. Just on saves itself, that could be their downfall. So I've got Winnipeg beating Vegas in 7. Finally, in the first round, I've got Edmonton getting through the LA Kings in 6. LA actually a good possession team, but they don't finish their chances. So I don't like that. And, I was going to make a point here about Edmonton. They just set the record for the highest power play percentage in NHL history. They are so good on the power play. And in the playoffs, all the penalties dry up. They're not going to have those power play opportunities. But LA's 4th in the NHL in power play percentage. They're going to be as affected as Edmonton. And Edmonton at 5-on-5 is still a dominant team. They have questions in goal. Stuart Skinner had a great rookie season, but playoffs are a different animal. Don't know if you could trust it. And I still will never trust Edmonton's blue line. But right now, Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl are playing on such a high level, just a historic level that we haven't seen from a hockey team in 25 years, that I'm picking them just on those two. I think those two are that level of good, and they're going to get through the Kings in 6. Second round of the playoffs. Maybe a bit of an upset. I have Dallas getting through Colorado. Colorado had a bit of a weird year, dealing with some injuries. Landeskog out this year. I think Dallas is a really well-built, complete team. They have the advantage in goal. I like Ottinger over Georgiev, despite similar results this year. I like Ottinger more. It's going to be a close series. It's a coin flip, but I got Dallas. I got Dallas getting through the Colorado Avalanche in round number 2, likely in 7 games. And then a battle in Canada. I've got Edmonton over Winnipeg, maybe in 6, to beat them in the second round. I think Edmonton's got more of the high-end talent than Vegas does, which will help them get through Winnipeg. I trust their goaltending more than I do with Vegas. Another difference. I'll take Stuart Skinner over Laurent Brossoit. So I've got the Oilers to overcome their blue line and get through the Winnipeg Jets in round number 2, which sets up for Dallas Stars, Edmonton Oilers, Western Conference Finals, and I've got the Edmonton Oilers getting through to the Stanley Cup. They're such a dominant 5-on-5 team, 4th in the last month in 5-on-5 expected goals for and shot attempts. McDavid, it's the McDavid factor. Best player in the world, 150-plus points. The guy's doing things that I've never seen in my lifetime, that I have to go back and watch black and white footage of. He is the man, the number 1 person in sports right now, and I think he will get the Edmonton Oilers to the Stanley Cup final, which means I have, get ready for this, Sabre fans. We've compared this Sabres team to 05-06 a lot, haven't we? Well, in the spirit of comparing things to 05-06, here you go. My Stanley Cup final matchup, the Carolina Hurricanes against the Edmonton Oilers. A rematch of the 06 Cup that the Sabres should have been in. This time, deserved by both Carolina and Edmonton. And I have the Hurricanes, just like in 06, getting through to win and beat the Edmonton Oilers in a close series, 6 or 7 games. I think the Carolina Hurricanes, the most complete team in my opinion in hockey, are going to go all the way through, and they are going to win this the entire playoffs, and they are going to be your Stanley Cup champions. Carolina is my pick over Edmonton. And that is going to do it for us today here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. So thanks everybody for tuning in. Enjoy night 1 of the Stanley Cup playoffs. We'll talk about the playoffs day by day here as they progress. I love, of course, talking hockey, and we're not going to be confined just to Sabres here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. Of course, we will have lots of Sabres content, though, coming your way throughout the off season. So thanks everybody for listening. Remember, Wednesday morning is Granato and Adams, so Wednesday's show will be our most important one, kind of previewing or recapping what the GM and the coach had to say. Thanks for making us your first listen every day here on the Locked On Sabres podcast, and be sure throughout the playoffs to take a listen to all of our other channels, whether it's Locked On Golden Knights or Locked On Jets or Locked On Islanders or Panthers or Carolina Hurricanes. We've got an option for everybody. So thanks everybody for listening, and we'll talk to you next time here on the Locked On Sabres podcast.